Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm Don Andrews, and this is Butte News.
I'm Monica Tranel, and this is the Congressional Montana 01 new House seat. And I'm a candidate, one of three: John Lamb, Ryan Zinke, and me.
What kind of things really kind of like helped prepare you for, just kind of the rigors of campaigning?
Well, being an Olympic athlete, for sure, the rigors of campaigning are tremendous. I've certainly committed to connecting with this new district and the people of this district, which has meant I put 1,000 miles on my minivan in 2 days, plus 6 events in that period of time. I've gone through 2 sets of tires, a set of brakes. I'm not using the brakes anymore. But it's certainly a lot. I mean, traveling. I'm lucky to be based in Missoula, so I can. It's sort of the heart of the new district physically, and so going to Cut Bank, going to Troy, then down to Dillon, Darby, and then over to West Yellowstone are sort of the furthest points in the district, and I can go there and back in a day if I need to. So that's been great, but it has certainly long hours and a lot of travel.
There's probably still a lot of people who aren't even familiar, like the new district at all.
Right.
Do you want to kind of go ahead and just explain how that came about?
Yep, so it's super exciting. So we're the first state to ever lose a seat and then get it back. But what's important to remember is this isn't actually the same seat that we had in 1990. So in the 1990 census, Montana's population, we lost the one of the 2 congressional seats that we had. And if you go back even further than that, we had 1 seat for a while, and then we had 2 seats up until 1990. And then we lost one of those 2 seats, and now in the 2020 census, our population had just broken the 1 million, and so we now have a second seat. And then the way the process works is the redistricting commission had to draw what those, so it was based on population and a number of other factors. So this new district is 16 counties and 2 Indian reservations. It's the Blackfeet and the CSKT reservations, and 16 counties. It's Pend Oreille is split, so it's Valier and Dupuy kind of in a dogleg, and then up into Glacier, and then over to Lincoln, down. It doesn't include Lewis and Clark. It includes Powell, which is sort of stair steps down. And then it comes around and gets Gallatin County, and then so that's the boundary. So it's loosely kind of a C. But it lies between Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks. So it's really a beautiful district and incredible, especially this time of year. And we've been so fortunate, no fires so far. So driving is amazing. I mean, when you come over going north on 93 and you come over the ridge and you see the Mission Mountains, I don't know if you've driven that, but it's just stunning. And so what an incredible district to be able to represent. Physically, it's a beautiful district, and the people of this district are fascinating too, and the different histories of Montana that manifest across the district.
Like we were saying, you're kind of new to running for office, but you really just kind of blew everybody out in the primary. You won by quite a big margin. Is that like giving you a lot of excitement and stuff like that, kind of carrying you over any humps to just keep going?
For sure. So, and then in 2020, I ran for the Public Service Commission in District 4, and outperformed every Democrat in Montana by a significant margin. And so that was 7 of the 16 counties that make up this new district. So I'd already had that momentum going into this year.
And a lot of people just knew you and knew who you were because of that.
I mean, I had some organic connection with our communities because the Public Service Commission is an entity, nobody knows what it is. And I was pretty far down the ballot in a busy year. And so I had to do the hard work of getting out and talking to folks and telling them here's what it is and here's why it matters.
Mm-hmm.
So those connections really carried through and into this year, and I've certainly built on that. So there was a lot of, I think, groundwork that had been laid that I don't think people were necessarily aware of, when you just look at it from the outside. I don't think that organic level of support necessarily comes through, but I certainly had that. And so I was really happy to see the primary, both on our side of it and then on the other side as well. Ryan Zinke is, he barely got out of the primary, and had about 60% of Republicans voted for somebody other than Zinke. Mm-hmm. So certainly that is a telling margin as well.
And speaking of your opponent, Ryan Zinke, there have been like a bunch of scandals and investigations, especially when he was Interior Secretary. I believe he was investigated 18 times for corruption and abuse of power. Going up against somebody who has less than, we'll say, a perfect record, and is willing basically just to kind of say anything to get a vote. Like, how do you feel like going up against that kind of mentality?
Yeah, right. So I think there are two opponents in this race. There are three of us, right?
Yes.
So there's Ryan Zinke as a Republican, and then John Lamb is running as Libertarian. And I believe he's LDS, but I haven't asked him. But I met him, and a very, very nice man. And so with respect to specifically Ryan Zinke and his record and his history and his story, so he has clearly used public office for his own personal gain. And his only reason to run for public office is for his own benefit. So I say the main distinction between the two of us is I'm doing this for you. And Ryan Zinke is doing this for himself. And only himself. And you can look at his donations. Only 6% of his money comes from Montana, compared to over 70% of my campaign money comes from Montanans. So, he's getting funded by big corporate interests, and he does their bidding. He has done their bidding consistently, and he will continue to do so. And that's what I have, I think this race presents a very clear, stark difference between Ryan Zinke, who has been in the pockets of big corporate interests and will do their bidding and continue to do so, and me. I have been here in Montana, on the ground, in the trenches, by your side, working for you, the people of Montana, and keeping money in your pockets. I've gone up against Northwestern Corporation, and sometimes it was just me, and going against Northwestern, and I've kept $10 million in Montanans' pockets because I was there. And I called a spade, and I followed the money, and I will continue to do that in Congress.
Which kind of leads me into my next question with all the corruption and dark money that gets put into politics. A lot of people talk, I'm going to do something about it, and you really just see them kind of stalled out kind of when they get there, or with some people, they just kind of completely flip and start taking money. What are the things, you fought corporations, large corporations, right. How do you keep that going, and what can we do to get basically, dark money and all the stuff that you can't see, that the public doesn't get to see,
right?
How do we bring that to light and make it go away?
So I think, with respect to campaign finance reform itself, that's a very discrete question and issue. And I think we need to remember that the voters of Montana passed the ballot initiative in, I think it was 2011. And you need to fact check me on this. I think it was 11, it could have been 12. And the margin was well over 70%. It could be 75% of the vote of Montanans voted in support of a ballot initiative that directed our congressional delegation to sponsor legislation to reverse Citizens United and to implement campaign finance reform. I mean, in Montana, And Butte is the heart of this story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, purchased politicians, we know what they look like. They look like Ryan Zinke.
Mm-hmm.
We know what that acts like. It acts like Ryan Zinke. And we know how to get rid of it, and it's to get the money out of politics so that people like Ryan Zinke can get bought and paid for as he is being, as is happening.
Yeah.
So that campaign finance initiative said introduce this legislation, and John Tester has done that in the Senate, and nobody has carried it in the House.
Yeah.
So in spite of the mandate from Montana voters to do that, so Ryan Zinke has ignored the direction of Montana voters to carry that campaign finance legislation, because then he won't get rich. I mean, he went into Congress having how much money, and now he has almost $40 million net worth. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
So I think getting money out of politics is a big job. It's a mandate from Montana voters, and I will carry that bill when I get to Congress. But I think the other part of your question is really, how can you trust that the person you'll vote for will continue on the path they've set for themselves? And I think, judge me by my record. I'm coming into this, I'm 56 years old. I've had a law practice here in Montana for 25 years. I've never outsourced my thinking, and I'm not going to start now, and I'm not going to start in Congress. I have 5 brothers, I have 4 sisters, and you can ask any one of them. I came into life fighting for justice and what's fair. And I fought for that when I was a little girl, and I will continue to do it as your representative in Congress. You can count on it. It's who I am.
And did a lot of that come from, you grew up in eastern Montana, you were a ranch girl?
Yeah, growing up with 9 siblings. I mean, I think some people do have a sort of an inherent sense of justice and a sense of, right and wrong. And, this is what we're going to work for. And one of the things, I actually just finished the book Fire and Brimstone, which I'm sure you've read. If not, I recommend it highly. But, the book talks about, Michael Punk, the author, talks about Burton Wheeler, who had a fierce sense of justice and what was right and wrong. And, he was very much a voice for Montana's, independent, fierce spirit. And I think, that was just something that was really, it was who he was. And in that whole, the 1918 time period and the Sedition Act and all of that, I mean, he took the brunt of that in a really terrible way and didn't get rolled over. He stood up and he said what he thought was right, and then he went to the Senate from Montana and he did what he thought was right. And when FDR really brought the Fort Peck Dam to Montana as a benefit to Burton Wheeler, he said to FDR, when FDR wanted to pack the court, he said, no way, that's wrong. So, there's a great example in Montana's history of somebody who went to Congress to serve Montana, did serve Montana, but didn't sell out.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great example of how to do it. To do the right thing for Montana, to bring resources to Montana, to serve Montana, but to never sell out.
And another thing that I know a lot of Montanans, is kind of like right in the peripheral are, jobs. How do we support ourselves with, a lot of like mining jobs and some industrial jobs kind of like going away? What are the jobs that we can do to basically replace those industries?
So this is such a fascinating moment, and especially for this district, and traveling across it and seeing the incredible opportunities. So right here in Butte, I toured the industrial park, and so you may know 600 jobs there that pay over $100,000 a year or in that range. Those are good jobs. So I think what's important to talk about labor too and capital is it's not just jobs. It's good jobs that you can support a family on, and you can buy a house in your community and you can send your kids to the local school. Like, we want our teachers, right? What is the starting salary for teachers in Montana? It ranges from, I've seen $26,000 in Thompson Falls, $33,000 is the average. You can't buy a house on $33,000 a year. Not in Bozeman, the average house is $800,000.
I think I just read today the lowest priced house that's up for sale right now in Bozeman is $525,000.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and those statistics are, they echo throughout this entire district. So I think it's having good jobs that pay a decent living, and then you can afford a decent place to live, and you can be a part of your community. So it's also affordability, which is the other side of that coin, right? Is having affordable communities that we can access and participate in. And so it's, healthcare that's affordable, prescription drugs that, are affordable and accessible. And it's constantly what I have done my entire career. It's about following the money. Follow the money, and you will find whose interests are being served by the way we have structured the world that we live in today. It is giant corporate interests who make billions and billions of dollars and don't pay any taxes. And we need to change that so that our middle class, our working class, can have a decent lifestyle and can go, grill their burgers, eat their watermelon, watch a baseball game, know that their kids are going to school, they're safe in their communities, we're supporting our law enforcement, that people are have meaning and purpose to their lives. That's the American dream, right? And we can have that. And your question was, how can we get that? And I think one of the exciting opportunities in this moment really is the energy transition and what that will bring, especially the Inflation Reduction Act is getting signed today. That brings so many opportunities that Western Montana can embrace. I mean, right here in Butte, the industrial park has $1 billion green hydrogen project looking at coming here. That would be amazing to get that landed. And Beaverhead County, their tax base is $1 billion. They have 2 solar projects that are $500 million of investment to that county. That's a big deal. The wind projects that are happening, the hybrid solar and battery projects in Lincoln County, they're talking about building a mill that will mill the 8-inch diameter or smaller trees that need to be removed from our forest to keep them healthy. So we've got all kinds of opportunities, and I think it's an exciting moment.
Really big obstacle for Montanans really seems to be housing. And, what are things that we can do, be it affordable housing programs or, just capping, the amounts that, you're allowed to sell and price gouge.
Right. So I think with corporate ownership of housing and getting second and third, ownership of housing and all of that, that certainly needs to be addressed and looked at. So for example, in Bozeman, we see the growth is people who are over 60 and under 30 is what the population is. It's not people between 30 and 60. The population is declining. So how do we serve the needs of those, of that demographic? And I know, here in Butte, there is a housing manufacturer, Sam and Hannah out at the industrial park are manufacturing small houses, right? That are, that you can take and put wherever it works. And so what we can do at the federal level is incentivize fast tracking permitting, adding, dwelling units. So making sure that we're looking at density. Butte, I think, is conducive to that, having density. It used to be a city of 100,000 and now it's 40,000?
Yeah, about 40,000.
Yep. So, where did all those people live? Well, there's the whole pit over there.
Yeah.
But I think certainly there are things to be looked at. Butte is certainly a very urban area in Montana and distinct from Bozeman. The issue is different. In Bozeman, they're carving out really great farmland for housing. Is that something we want? Is that, where we want to put our resources? In Missoula, we have a project that's getting built out by the airport that's 600 living units, homes, houses, places for people to live and call home. That is a really exciting project that's, in the works right now. So there is a lot happening, and there's a lot that still has to happen. But certainly figuring out how to make the growth of Western Montana work for the people who have lived here and called it home for a long time is something I think we need to be having ongoing conversations about, and sitting at the table and talking to everybody who's invested in that. And that's important, to come to solutions and to be pragmatic about it. And that's, we need to work together as a community, as a new district. So, and I'm super excited about this new district, and I feel like having traveled it so much and having talked to so many different people and gone to the parades and the fairs and just, meeting folks in their towns, I do feel like I know this district, and it has become a district through my campaign.
There's this very large, growing population that's just disillusioned with politicians at the moment, and it's I'm not going to vote because it's all the same and it's all corrupt and blah blah blah, and so we don't get the numbers out there, and it really kind of offsets what you need to win an election now.
Right.
How do you get through to those people that, hey,
I say the strongest form of voter suppression is apathy. And that is how they want you to feel. They want you to feel like your vote doesn't matter, because the most powerful voice to push back against corporate greed and corruption, and Butte tells us this story, know our history, is the voice of the people. And we, the people, are the people. We have to stand up, and we have to elect our representative who comes from us, comes from the people, and will be our voice. And that is the voice that, what is the single most powerful thing in America? It's the voice of the people. It's democracy. And the squelching of democracy is, that powerful interests want to destroy democracy for their own financial gain. Follow the money. That's what I've done my whole career. And I'm in this for democracy. I'm in this for the people of Montana. I'm in this for my home.